Hi, guys, it's Fossil without Spawn this time as she's out and about doing spawny things. But we received information from a first time listener who contacted us after hearing episode 24, where Spawn and I had discussed a supernatural occurrence that we had experienced. And this woman reached out to us and told us her story. We were lucky to get her on the show. Ready or not, here we go. Welcome, Elizabeth, to our show.
I'll start out by telling you the first strange experience that I had. I was about 13 years old, and this one was really quite terrifying
Oh,
for
no.
me at the time. Yeah, it was really frightening. What happened was I had gone to bed. My room was, my parents owned a large home. I'm one of 10 children, so we had a large home, but I did have my own room in the basement, in the far corner, and it was right next to the bathroom. So I had gone to bed, had fallen asleep. I, in my teens, I always slept on my stomach. And I was in a deep sleep, as you do when you're a teen. And I suddenly had the feeling that someone grabbed onto my shoulder and pulled me out of bed.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
I could feel myself being dragged across the floor, like across the carpet on my face. And I trying so hard to wake up, and it just felt like I couldn't wake up. And I finally woke up and sat up, and I was on the floor.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, wow, that was weird. And I turned and looked at the corner of my room, and I could see this dark shadow, this dark shape in the corner of my room. And it looked like a cloaked man, like a man with a dark cloak over him and over his head. And like it just totally freaked me out.
Sure.
But I try to be a logical person. I was extremely messy in my teens, and I thought, oh, that's just a pile of laundry or
Oh,
something,
jeez.
you know.
Right, as one does.
I had my light switch. I mean, thankfully, I had a lamp over my bed, and didn't have to go because I would have had to like go to that corner to flick on the light. So I flicked on the light by my bed, and there was nothing there.
So you didn't try to talk to the entity. You didn't try to.
No, no, no,
No.
no.
Did you do any
No.
research on the house to see if anybody had passed
No,
away?
I never did. I never did. I was 13, right? So,
Yeah.
that didn't occur to me. So anyways, I crawled back in bed, and, I laid there for quite a while, and kind of kept my eye on the corner, and everything seemed okay, and I fell back asleep. And a few minutes later, or I don't know exactly how long it was later, but it was long enough. I was in that deep sleep again. And it happened again the second time. Exactly the same. So, yeah, again, pulled from my bed and dragged across the floor. And then I woke up again, and I saw that dark figure again the second time. Well, this time I'm even more scared, of
Right.
course.
Right.
But I think, I'm losing my mind. And I've haven't told too many people this story. I've told a couple of people, and they've said to me, oh, you had a sleep paralysis. um
Not the same.
but I was on the floor. Okay.
Right.
So anyways, it happened again a third time. To make a long story short, it happened 3 times. Each time I got up, turned on my light, the figure was gone. Well, by now I'm like pretty wide awake, and I got up and I looked at my face in the mirror, and my face on this side was all scraped,
Oh, wow.
And the strangest thing was I had a handprint on my shoulder.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And like, have you ever like fallen asleep on your hand or something
Sure, sure.
and it leaves a red mark?
Right.
That's what it looked like. But the fingers were coming down like
Toward
this.
your chest,
And
not
there's
away.
no way
Yeah,
that
you
I
can't
could
grip
even
yourself
get
that
my
way.
hand in that direction to
Right.
fit, because that's what I thought at first. I thought, oh, I just fell asleep on my hand,
Right.
but I could not get my hand into that position. Okay, so like sleep had fled my eyes by
Sure.
this time. I left my light on. I was awake for hours just cowering in the dark. I don't know, you know, probably a lot of people would think, why didn't you go wake up your parents? And I was a very independent uh, kid, and I just didn't think it was worth bothering them, or even if I did, I didn't know what they could do about it.
Right.
But anyways, I think I did eventually fall asleep again, and the next morning when I woke up, and this is really weird and I do not understand it. I got up and I went to go into the bathroom, to go to the bathroom, and the bathroom floor was covered with earthworms. There were worms all over
Oh
the floor.
my goodness.
They looked like they had been sitting there for a week because they were kind of all dried up and shriveled up. Well, I had used the bathroom the night before. There was no
There's no
worms.
worms.
By this time, I think, okay, I'm hallucinating, right? So I like grabbed a pencil from my room and I was like poking at them to see if they were real, because
Are they
I
real?
thought, what is going on here? It wasn't raining out like, you know, I thought, well, maybe it rained and the earthworms just got in a crack somewhere or something, because you know how worms come up when
Yeah.
it rains. But it wasn't raining. There was nothing. There was probably 20 like shriveled up earthworms on the bathroom floor.
Super bizarre.
To this day, I have no idea where they came from or what that means, or if it had anything to do with the experience that I had had during the night. It was just a really, really strange, weird thing that happened to me.
Absolutely. And you
That
can never
absolutely
explain it.
happened. I know.
And you never did research on this house.
I didn't. And that was the only time that anything like that happened in that house. I lived in that house from the time I was 11 until I was 16. And I never had another thing. It was just that one time.
But
So,
you didn't answer him, so he moved on. He's like, she's not listening. you
well,
wonder,
yeah.
you wonder what he wanted. What did he
I
want?
I have to say that I had a very, very dark feeling. Like, it wasn't a feeling like it was a benevolent spirit. It did not feel like a benevolent spirit. It felt evil.
He's
It
trapped.
felt evil.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my probably the strangest thing that I've ever had happen to
Well,
me.
that's definitely terrifying.
Yeah.
Anytime they interact on a physical level, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it was. It was.
We're trained to believe it doesn't happen or it doesn't exist and it isn't real. And then you question your own sanity, which is even worse.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought, like, what is this? Like, did someone give me drugs or?
Oh no.
Yeah, it was. I didn't know what was going on.
It's too bad. I mean, like today, people would be snapping pictures, and even if you had a chance to snap a picture of the earthworms on the floor, there would be people saying you put them there.
Exactly.
Now, how do
Yeah,
you prove it? You can't.
yeah, yeah.
It's a
And I have
shame.
no idea. For all I know, one of my siblings could have been playing a prank or something. But it doesn't seem logical. Because I've thought about this a lot, and I thought, even if my brother went and dug up a bunch of worms and put them on the floor, they wouldn't dry out like in one night. They
Yeah,
would,
right.
still look like worms.
Worms.
Even if they died, they would still look like worms, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, they looked like sections of them were kind of burnt and crispy. It
Ooh.
was, yeah, yeah, it
Word.
was weird. So anyway,
Yikes.
my next kind of strange experience I had was when my kids were quite small. I was a single mom for 12 years, and my youngest was 5, and the older one would have been 11. And we had had a fire in the duplex that I lived in. Actually, who is my youngest son, he's now my middle son, set a fire.
Oh,
He set
jeez.
the basement on fire when he was
Oh, no.
2 and a half.
Oopsie.
So at that time, I had a really hard time finding housing because we were in an economic boom and just there was just no housing available. So I found a place but I couldn't afford it. It was, it was just breaking me. So we moved into this after a year of living there. I moved into this. It was like a condo unit. The
Mm-hmm.
condos that like you have 3 floors and then they're all attached, and there
Mm-hmm.
might be like 6 condos in a
Mm-hmm.
unit. So the developers had built this, so it was brand new, but they had intended to sell it as condos and they weren't able to sell them, so they rented. So I moved into this. It was the end unit, and like I said, it was brand new. No one had lived in it before me. So it was kind of odd that every time we went in the basement, the kids, like, we'd lived in other similar places. The kids always had a playroom in the basement. I did my laundry in the basement. Like, it wasn't that we had something against basements, but the kids never wanted to play down there. And I'd go down there to do laundry, and I always felt like, that feeling where someone else
Something's
is in the
there.
room,
Mm-hmm.
or you're being watched, or
Mm-hmm.
you just feel just a bit off.
Right. You know.
So I always felt that. And so this story, I guess I should clarify that it's not my own story, because that kind of weird sort of creepy feeling of being watched is the only thing that I personally experienced. But my 5-year-old son told me, and he didn't tell me when it happened, but he told me later. And to this day, he turned 39 2 days ago,
Oh,
and
happy birthday.
and he still swears that this happened. And that is that he said that he was downstairs, like on the main floor, where our living room and stuff was, and he had fallen asleep. He had a habit of waking up during the night and thinking it was morning. So I guess he had woken up and went downstairs to play or whatever and had fallen asleep down there. And he said that he woke up because he was being carried upstairs, and he assumed that I was carrying him upstairs to bed. And so he woke up and he, looked up to look at me, and he said he was being carried upstairs by nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
He was just floating up the stairs. Something carried him upstairs and put him in bed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And he doesn't have any clue. He didn't see any colors, or he didn't experience any sounds or pitches. There's
no,
so many factors that a lot of people experience in these things, and I always want to ask these questions. Is like, was there a high pitched sound, or was there any like music, or was there any feeling, cold, warm?
yeah. I mean, it's too bad he's not here that we could ask himself.
We might have to
But
bring him
I
on the
know,
show.
I know well, I don't think he would come on because
Yeah.
he's not that comfortable talking about it.
Most people who have real experiences aren't.
Yeah, I remember asking him one day if he remembered it, and it was in front of his wife, and he just really just clammed up. He did not want to tell the story in front of his wife. His wife it has anxiety and
Right.
gets frightened by
Sure.
that kind of thing. So yeah, he wouldn't didn't even want to talk about it.
It's PTSD, really. You're out of control. You have no idea why it happened or how it happened, and you're worried that people are going to think there's something wrong with you. So now you have a judgment issue on the table as well. And yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's really interesting.
It's the same look people get and more when they come home from war. They don't want to talk about it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I've never asked him if he heard anything, but he didn't when he's told me about it, which he's told me about it on more than one occasion. He didn't mention any sound or anything. He just said he was being carried up the stairs by nothing. That's
By
how he
nothing.
described it.
Wow.
So yeah, strange.
I don't rule out anything. I don't think that we'll ever necessarily know in this day and age. And I know that, the psychology of it, people try and poo poo it away. And I don't believe that that's the best answer. I don't believe that that's true. It's not just some chemical in our brain making us believe something. I'm always going to
I
be on the
agree.
search for the truth. I will not be so arrogant as to say it absolutely doesn't happen, and I cannot be so arrogant as to say it absolutely did. I'm right there in the middle going, it's quite possible we don't know everything. Because it happens so often and then never again. And that's what makes me question it's not a mental health issue. If it's a mental health
Yeah.
issue, it could
Yeah.
last you your entire life. And if it's not something that's reoccurring all the time, how can that be?
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
controlling it. It's fascinating though.
It is. What struck me odd though was that the house was new. Like you always think that you get hauntings in, old places where
That's Hollywood
there's
though.
been death and things like that. But I do believe th- that the ground, can be haunted. I don't like the word haunted,
Me
but
neither.
you know what I'm
Me
saying.
neither. I do.
That there could have been a spirit that was occupying that ground. It was near the river. Areas close to rivers are, typically places that are, more occupied or
Right.
have been more occupied in history by people. So I don't know if it was uh, like Native American, possibly, but I do think, like, I mean, I understand that it was frightening for him to experience that, but at the same time, the act was so benevolent,
That's my
carrying a
thing.
child to bed, you
That's my
know?
thing. I don't believe that the idea of ghosts is, I think Hollywood screwed that up for us. Everybody has these experiences and they're not always bad. We get scared because we can't explain it and our brain is looking for an answer and there is no answer. And that is
Hmm.
where the fear comes from, right? So why you're
Yeah,
right. I think yes, energy can enter into an object, but I don't think it's only the old houses. I think it can be anything.
yeah,
I often think, why does it happen when we're alone? And I guess it would be because if you're alone, you tend to listen more clearly or more acutely. You tend to pay attention. All your senses are kind of alive when you're alone. You're paying attention in some subconscious level. And I wonder if that's the only time they can reach us when they're trying to talk, or if this exists, is it possible that they only go to children because they're open to it because they don't have any preconceived notions of what is real and what isn't? Is that why they go to children more often? And as adults, it seems to only happen to those of us when we're absolutely alone. Is it because we're only paying attention then? There's nothing interfering with the download, if you will.
yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes, I mean, maybe it doesn't happen to us only when we're alone. And my last story will sort of highlight that. But also, if you're in a house that you know there's a lot of people in and you hear a sound, you just assume it's one of these other people. You don't
Right.
think that, something's odd about it, right? That's not what your expectations are. But if you're alone and you hear a
Right.
sound,
Absolutely.
your mind goes to a different place. What made that sound? Like what could that be? you know? So, going on to my last story was this story, I think, more than any of the others, I can really describe as an actual haunting because I honestly believe, and it happened over, you know, several months. But let me get into the story, and then you can, judge for yourself. So I worked for about 14 years for a small family owned drilling fluid company. So they, service the oil industry by, making and selling drilling fluids. And the company consisted of the man, his wife, and then they had twin sons. And the twin sons had their own company, but they shared the office space. The wife was the office manager and accountant. Well, one summer, I think this was probably, I had started with them in 2001, but I think it was around 2007. I'd been there about 7 years. And they had gone on holidays first, and were gone for 3 weeks. And my holidays started at the end of their holidays, and I was gone for 3 weeks. So when I came back from holidays, I had not seen them for 6 weeks. And when I got back, the lady, the office manager, was in the hospital, and
Oh.
she had been fine when I left. So when I came back, she was in the hospital with liver cancer, and it was really bad. And she only lived 3 more weeks after that. Like, it took her like that. It took her so fast. Then, right shortly after she passed away, all these strange things started happening in the office.
She
Um,
wasn't ready to leave.
yeah, she wasn't ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't ready to retire. She wasn't ready to be done her life. And I know that. She was uh, because the family would tell me, they'd go and visit her and come and say, oh, she's so mad that this is her retirement, lying in a
Oh.
hospital bed. And she wasn't done.
Right.
She was 63 years
That's
old.
still
That's 2 years
young.
older than I am now.
Still
Yeah.
young.
So, yeah. So these things started happening. I can tell you some of the things. I can't remember the order that they happened in,
Sure.
but some of the things that happened were, okay, I worked first in the morning. I would come in about 6:30, quarter to 7 in the morning, and I was the one who opened the office. And I was usually there working for at least an hour by myself. Their office was on the 41st floor of an apartment building. It had been the penthouse. They had been unable to rent the penthouse as an apartment, so they had converted it to office space. So
Nice.
we had the penthouse. So it was a pretty long elevator ride up. Well, I remember going one morning to work and going into the lobby and pressing the elevator button, and I'm waiting for the elevator, and thought I was alone in the room.
Uh oh.
And I heard just over my shoulder, it sounded like about a foot and a half from my head, just behind me to the right, a big sigh, like
My
just like that.
goodness.
And I thought, oh, I didn't think anybody was in here. Who is that?
Oh
I
my
thought I was
gosh.
alone. And there was no one there, of course. But I mean, it was just
Clear
clear
as a bell.
as day, this loud, just a sigh, like people do when they're waiting for the elevator,
She was mad. You slowing sister down.
Yep. Some of the other things that happened was the like we had half of the floor, another company had the other half, but we had joint washrooms, and the women's washroom door, There was just one door. Some washrooms have a door and then a second door, but we just had one. And it had been painted over a few times. And so, in order to close the door, you had to really push it quite hard. And so when we used the washroom, because it was open to the hallway, you always wanted to have that door closed because people could walk by and just look in, right?
Jeez, right.
So I was in the washroom one day. I had pushed this door closed, and I was in the cubicle. And while I was in the cubicle, all of a sudden, all three of the sink taps came on full blast.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what the heck? I didn't hear, because you could hear the door, it would just go when it would open, right? I thought, why would someone come in and just turn on all the taps?
Right.
So, I finished my business, came out, and all three taps were just running full blast. The door was completely closed. It had not been opened. You couldn't pull it closed from the outside because there was no handle on the outside. It was push
Hmm.
only. So, that was just strange. I mean,
Did you turn off the water?
I turned off the water. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of it, of course, as we do. I'm going, okay, if this is a plumbing issue, something opened it up. How do all three come on? If if it had broken from the inside that the water could just go, not how would that happen on all three taps if you were able to close them again? So it clearly wasn't a plumbing issue, right?
No,
I mean, that's just
no.
bizarre. It's
Yeah.
agreeably bizarre. If there's any plumbers that want to answer to this, we'd like to know. We should say that. Come at us, bro. We'd like to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was odd. There were several times that I would be in the women's washroom, with that sticky door closed, and the door would suddenly open, on its own. That happened many times, and not just to me. It happened to, I had one other female coworker, and it happened to her several times as well. So there was no, I mean, it's inside. There's no wind that
Right.
was really could be strong enough to open that door, even if, it was air pressure or something. You had to push on it pretty hard to open it. Then one morning, I was there, as I said, I was there early in the morning alone, and my office was just across from the front door. They didn't have a receptionist, so I kind of, because it was a small company and there was only a few of us working there, I kind of wore that hat, right? That receptionist hat. So because I was there, it was before our normal office hours, I had the door locked. Well, the front door was quite a heavy door. It was on one of those, things that pulls it
Mm-hmm.
closed. It had a
Deadbolt.
deadbolt and then a handle.
Hmm.
So when someone came, if they had a key, you'd hear them unlock the deadbolt, you'd hear that handle go down, then the door would open, and then when it closed, it would close with a loud,
Clap. Right,
smack,
right,
click, click.
right.
So I was sitting facing away from the door because I'm facing my computer. I hear the key, I hear the door open, I hear the smack, and then I hear like loud footsteps go by quickly. Well, it sounded like Brad, one of the twins. He's a big man, 6'3" or something, and clompy feet, and that's what it sounded like. And he had someone had called for him, and I had a message for him. So I called him. I said, "Oh, Brad, there was a message for you." And like there's no answer, right? So I got up and I chased him down the hallway. No Brad, nobody. Like there was nobody. I went back to the front door. The front door was still
Oh
locked.
my God. And you stayed in the office.
I did because
I'm imagining it. It must be me. Obviously, it must be me. What's going on, right?
no, you know what? No,
Woo!
no, I did not think it was just me. I know that I heard that door, and I know that I heard someone walk by,
Right.
and it was loud. But I didn't feel a malevolent feeling. It just felt like as if one of my coworkers had come in.
And
You
it
know,
was your lady friend coworker. poor lady friend coworker was just
Yeah,
coming in.
I I, I believe it was her. Yeah. I heard her often, and in fact, I heard her during the day. Often, I would hear that door open, and even a little later, they switched me into another office. They moved me into another office that was more around the corner from the door, and I told the boys, I said, that door opens and no one comes in. And they're like, you're just a man. Nah, that doesn't happen. You're crazy. It's the wind.
Right,
you
right,
know?
right, right. With a deadbolt and a handle.
So,
Okay.
so yeah,
Some
yeah.
wind.
So, yeah, I heard that door many times open and close and no one come in. So that was a really common thing.
Did you ever try and talk to her?
I didn't, but I will go on with the story because someone did. We had a fellow who would clean our office on the weekends. He just came on the weekends. We were small. They didn't think we needed cleaning every night like
Hmm.
some offices do. If anything got messy, we would just look after it ourselves. Yeah, we had a fellow from Guatemala who would come in, and he would come usually early on Fridays, early enough to, he'd come around and chat with us, and we were on first name basis with him. He came like, you know, I had had these experiences, the other gal had had experiences, the boys all poo pooed it, but he came to us one day and he said, have you ever had, strange things be happening in here lately, like hearing footsteps or hearing people or, turning machines on and off and things like that? And we're like, yes. So he was actually really frightened of it. Oh, another thing, there was one more thing that I was going to say was that both me and the other girl really often if we were waiting by the elevator, we would get this sort of woozy, weird, nauseous feeling come over us. Like, and just in this one spot, right in front of the elevator, to go down. And we would feel this weird feeling. And sometimes we would both feel it at the same time. Sometimes she would feel it, sometimes I would feel it. But I've heard too, where I've read that that can be a spiritual manifestation as well. That sort of feeling that you're just off balance just a little bit. Like what it reminds me of is if you feel a really slight earthquake
Hmm.
and you kind of like,
Disoriented for a second.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was it was like, but anyway, getting back to the story about our cleaner, once we told him that, yeah, we've been having these experiences as well, he would come and tell us about things that had happened on the weekend, or on the weekend as he'd been cleaning, and it quite concerned him. He was quite frightened by it. The other girl and I we just sort of took it in stride and never felt like we were in danger or, anything. But he was frightened by it. So one night he came in, with I think he brought his rosary in
Oh,
and and prayed over the space and
nice.
tried to and talked to her and said, it's okay, you can move on, just be at peace and
Right.
move on and go towards the light and this.
Nice. That's all we know
And
to
you know
do.
what? Yeah,
That's all we know to do.
but after that there was never another
She
manifestation.
just wanted to be recognized.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my goodness. I wonder if all of them, even the angry ones, if that's all they want. It's just to be acknowledged. I know it's hard. It's like you think about it as human beings in front of each other, when you're confronted with a stranger who's in a very bad mood and they might be taking it out on you, especially if you're in the service industry, it's really tough to stay calm. And it's even worse
Hmm.
when you can't see what's being angry. So it's no
Yeah.
wonder we get so terrified. And if you think about it, when I think of what we call it, Hollywood wants to present as evil, is no different than just an angry individual in front of us that you can't calm them down. There's nothing you could do about it. They're like a tire fire. Do you know what I mean? They're processing it emotionally,
Yeah.
but now they're in a different plane. And how do you handle that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you look at people around you, there's good people and there's
Always.
people who are not so
Not
good.
so good. Are still trying to figure it out and lashing out in the meantime.
So, I think that's probably the same with spirits who have gone on, but I also believe that there's spirits who have never been born. Like I do believe that there are evil spirits who have never been born, but they still inhabit this earth, you know. So
Yeah, that's a whole
whether
other topic, isn't it? A whole other topic. Some people would call them
yeah,
demons, the idea of
yeah,
demons, natural
yeah.
evil. Yeah. Ooh, ooh.
But I mean they're still like I think equal spirits to our spirits, but they're not very happy. I have hardly shared those stories with anyone because you always think people think you're crazy. I mean,
There's always going to be people
you're
that have
imagining.
attitudes, but there's also those
Yeah.
bunches that, like you said, like your son, like my daughter, who did not want to talk about them because they were afraid of either, causing more fear or, having people it affect their life because people will think otherwise of them. And I think it is important
Hmm.
to talk about these experiences. I think it is because it makes us question what is real? What is real?
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, when you keep them to yourself all the time, you don't get to have that joint experience with someone else because like I think everyone has these, or maybe not everyone, but I think most people do have a story. I really do. I think it's a common human experience, and we keep it to ourselves, and then we never know that everyone else is experiencing the same thing or has experienced the same thing and can relate to you.
Well, Elizabeth, I really appreciate you sharing your stories with us. So, thank you for
Oh,
sharing. Thank you for being here.
it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Bless. Man, there you go. I still have chills over her experiences. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. See you next time. Take care. Bye.